Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Goodness, I've been excited for you to hear this episode today. It is a story of what happens when you take a risk on yourself and just start something and keep backing yourself into whatever comes next. It's a story of the potential that we can create, or rather co-create for ourselves when we just get moving, which is a factor of business building that never ceases to fill me with elation at just the sheer possibility of it all. My guests today are onto their second business together in podcasting, an industry that holds far more potential than meets the eye. And this one began from a somewhat simple email to Stephen Bartlett, which you'll hear all about in the conversation. If you want to build an industry-defining business and be the kind of leader that truly supports others to grow honestly, you are absolutely going to love this. Christiana, Brenton and Georgie Holt, co-founders of Flight Studio, share with us today the personal and professional impact of duos, why the story of you really matters, the most important skill in founding a company, why you have to tell everyone what you're doing, a perspective on the pressure of opportunity, the transformative gift of allowing yourself to just try, the practical application of failure, and what I can only describe as a masterclass in leadership thinking. If you listened to my short solo episode last week, or just back one episode in the show feed, if you're listening to this later on, you'll know this episode nearly didn't see the light of day thanks to me accidentally mucking up my own audio settings. Still dying about that, but rather than shy away from it, I just owned it, learned some new skills along the way, discovered the extraordinary generosity of business friends, and trusted that although my audio isn't quite as perfect as you would normally hear, you'll forgive me because the content is just that great. Let's get into it. Joining me from London to share their business building story are the delightful Christiana, Brenton and Georgie Holt, co-founders of Flight Studio. And let me give you a little context on this exciting company and these two amazing humans. You've likely heard of a little podcast called Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. It was the #1 podcast on Apple in 2023, and the team behind this not-so-little pod are quite spectacular in their approach. Their rigorous focus on experimentation, innovation, and finding the 1%ers that lead to epic growth has resulted in around 400 million views on YouTube and an audience of around 2 million for every episode, with the revenue that follows. In an industry where the average podcaster might expect an audience of around 450 per episode, depending which of the multitude of insight studies you consult with, that's pretty significant. This growth and the potential of the proprietary data-led methodologies and technologies that led to it brought Stephen, Christiana, and Georgie together to co-found Flight Studio, which is a global podcast media and technology company focused on creating podcast brands that contribute to a happier, healthier, whole human experience, providing a global audience for the category-leading experts across a variety of content verticals. They're starting off with 5 incredibly influential humans to build multi-channel podcast brands, not just across audio, video, and social, but with events and traditional book publishing built into the company as well. Now, I do try to do my best not to nerd out on my industry of podcasting too much on this show, given we are here to focus on the experience of being in business for yourself across all industries and stages, all in an effort to keep more of us in business. But in this instance, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to lean into it a little bit, as this story today is one of unimaginable opportunity for both the industry that I love, these two incredible business builders joining me today, and the world at large, as the positive impact that podcasting can have on everything from personal growth to education to commercial revenue and everything in between is simply unmatched. And it is a story that's born from taking the first step to backing yourself into business, with this being the second company these two have co-founded, and then trusting what is next. So as you can hear, it is really tickling all my trigger points. It's true that once you get started on this path in business, you literally never know what's right around the corner. And I cannot wait to bring you this story. CB, Georgie, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you, Kim. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for inviting us on.
Oh, my pleasure. I was taking lots of deep breaths through that because I was very excited to get into that introduction and give the listener just one little bit of my absolute awe for what you guys are building here. But before we get into some of that, I want you both to picture your best friend for a moment. How would they describe you? And Georgie, I'll kick off with you first.
I think they would say I have like really strong combination of like WhatsApp group admin energy and head girl energy. Like I'd say that those two things, like, with love, of course, but like that's definitely how they would describe me.
CB, I could probably guess who you have in mind, but I would love to hear what your best friend might say about you.
It probably depends on the friend. They would probably characterize me as very passionate about my work, very ambitious, and terrible at replying. And I think the two are inextricably linked.
I have been at the receiving end of this. I'm familiar and I can always forgive it because I understand exactly where you're at. But no, that's wonderful ways to be described, I think. And, passion and good energy are just why I was so extra excited to talk to you because, yeah, this is my vibe. I'm getting your vibe. Now, you have both had significant careers in audio media before this latest move. So could you take me through a little bit of how you came to be working together for the first time? How did you get there?
Well, Kim, my journey into audio, as you know, began at Nova Entertainment, where I had the pleasure of working with you for many, many years. And at that time, Nova Entertainment entered a joint venture with a company called Acast, which are the world's biggest independent podcast platform, certainly at the time. And that took me to London. My passion for audio and podcasting and also just working overseas. I moved to Acast London in 2019. And then I believe in 2020, Georgie joined us as the managing director. It was during COVID as well. So, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be a new leader and be responsible for managing the entire team and have never met any of us in person. Georgie and I first met on a video call. I was sitting on the floor in my bedroom during COVID. This was yes, interesting. I feel like the world was kind of falling apart around us, but we had an immediate connection. Georgie was interviewing everyone at the time and trying to kind of ask them for feedback around what was working in the business and then opportunities for improvement, to which I had prepped a slightly long document of all my thoughts and feelings of what I
think it was 40. I think it was like a 45-page manifesto, I think.
I am not surprised.
I really distinctly remember the moment though, because it was the first time in a long time, I think, other than, of course, the Nova Entertainment gang with certainly yourself and Kate Murphy, that I had found another, so to speak. I feel like I had been seen and found someone I could truly aspire to work with, to learn from. And there was an instantaneous connection, certainly from my side, a lot of respect and admiration. Little did we know that I think that, that moment, I believe was meant to be, whether or not you believe in kind of the universe. I really do believe Georgie and I were meant to meet. It was instantaneous for me. Both of us really, really passionate about the medium, very, very intentional of why we've chosen to invest our lives in podcast media as well. That was an instant bond for us that, it's really the only channel that we believe in the world that adds really positive psychological value to the audience, which is really interesting. Even 4 years ago, it's really setting the scene for what we would go on to build and co-found together in Flight Studio. So that was the moment. And she's continued to inspire me every day since.
I think it took us 6 months to meet in person though, right? It took another, because of the COVID restrictions. We sort of spent the first 6 months of our relationship totally remote from each other. And then we met, and it was because I think it was a hot summer's day that we managed to actually meet for person for a coffee. So I'll always remember that day very, very, very well, that it was the first time in 6 months. And it sort of felt very powerful and like it was exciting to meet someone in real life. You sort of forget that all of these things were happening to us at that stage, that the world as we knew it had completely stopped and changed. So I just remember sort of the impact of that in-person meeting feeling really resonant and important. And, you do wonder and reflect, like, had it not been COVID, would we have felt the same way? Would it have been the same experience? So again, a lot of these sort of universal things happening to sort of build up towards what we find ourselves doing today. So yeah, it was a great first meeting. I remember it very well. And what I absolutely immediately connected with CB. I don't think she was the first person I'd spoken to at the company, and I was asking everyone a similar set of questions about, just the red threads that I could pull on around the company and all of the great things that it was doing and the things that we could work on and improve together. That was always the outcome. Like, you always want to find things that you can come together as a collective, and sort of the small changes you can make pretty quickly, and the longer term changes that might take a little more time to bring to the forefront. Is that CB told me the truth, like unequivocally. Like, there was no personal net benefit or gain. There was no sort of like, sometimes people tell you things because they want you to promote them, or they want to maybe push someone else in the way of a problem. And she just told me the truth straight as it was. And I immediately connected with that, because as anyone in a business knows, like, people who tell you the truth are some of the most important people to have around, because it means that you can make very good decisions from that moment of truth versus working on like information that's incorrect or has been filtered in some way or another to direct you in a different place. So I immediately knew that she was telling me the truth. The 45-page manifesto was helpful in order to understand that it was extremely a riveting read from end to end. But it was sort of just the effort that she put into it. Like, it really was like, hey, I'm meeting everyone. I've got 20 minutes. Like, please just come and tell me these are the questions I'm going to be asking. I'm asking everyone the same questions. And there she was telling me the truth of the 45-page manifesto. And I thought, yeah, this is different. This is special.
I think that energy match in co-founders, having had the pleasure of interviewing quite a few of them, that energy match that you feel on something that's less logical and more gut instinct, and something that can be built in trust, is just so incredibly important. And yes, as I mentioned, I can just imagine how wonderful and considered that manifesto was. CB works very, very well. She is absolutely one of the best. And as I said in my intro, before Flight Studio was a thing, you guys co-founded Telling Media together. So I want to almost imagine, I guess, that moment where your relationship has grown. You've now moved to America to lead the team over there. You're working together. Such an incredible market to be working in as well, particularly for podcasting. And then that instinct to be like, hey, we can, it's all great, well and good to work side by side here, but we can actually develop a company, something else. What was it like coming to that decision together, and how did it feel to launch your first company into market?
It's a great question. I think when you go through such huge career transitions together and understand that you are able to achieve and to take on those challenges because of each other, it's a really powerful place to start any big decision from. And I'm a huge and passionate advocate of duality and duos. I think it's a really important way to go about any new idea, challenge, opportunity, difficulty, is to find someone to do it with. And I don't think that means that you can't do it alone. I think it's very important to have a partner. I think that's how we set up our personal lives. It's how we set up our friendships. Like, we're constantly looking for partnerships, deeper connections, people that we can deeply discuss our challenges with, that we can actually disagree and find better paths forward. And I think CB and I sort of attacking our problems together was something that gave me so much confidence, that actually having gone to America and moving to the US and been given that amazing opportunity by Acast and going together to do that thing as a duo, and then to get there and then sort of be in this ad market recession. They didn't ever call it that, but really the ad economy is in free fall when we got there. And then sort of be taking on a new team, a new challenge in these kind of very difficult market dynamics in a very changing and fast-paced moving market. Podcasting was really going through this like great reset at that time as well. And to understand we could attack that, come together, find solutions, find a successful path forward, really like it was genuinely just the easiest decision I think I've ever made in my life, to sort of say, we should go and do something for ourselves here. And it really was then just trying to find that opportunity in an industry that we were very passionate about. So I think if it had not been telling, it would have been something else. It just that in that moment in time, we spotted a gap and an opportunity that really combined our skill set, where could still fuel an industry through advertising, through monetization that we deeply believed in, and as core beliefs around the importance of it. So for me, it's like the power of duality, the power of putting into difficult situations together, and then finding that you are better people, better leaders, better decision makers because of each other. That's a really powerful thing. And I think some people just always believe they have to go it alone. And that's just not true. And I think that's why energy matching, as you said before, like that co-founder mentality is such a good thing. So I'm like, always try and fight to find your partner. And a lot of people don't spend enough time trying to do that. I think they try and think about themselves. Like, what am I going to get out of it? What's my next promotion? How am I going to win? It's like, how do we win together? And actually, how do you win with someone else is a really powerful tool.
There's always something in every episode that I feel like is just for me. And I think that one might have been it because, yes, I've been inviting in the right kind of person or people for ideas that I have. And you've just made me link a couple of points together. So thank you for that. And you're right. Community and learning from each other and connecting is absolutely how we grow as individuals. So, as two people who have absolutely shone in their careers to then be stepping into their own thing. And and I talk about it often on every platform that somebody will let me talk about it, just the ego shift and the personal growth shift and the fear shift that happens when you step out as the director or, as somebody building something for yourself. CB, what did that feel like for you to go, okay, here I am. This is my company. I'm doing it with Georgie. Here we are. Like, how was that for you?
I think we've spoken about this a lot. I mean, first and foremost, it's a deeply, deeply humbling experience because, to have worked in relatively established, well-known organizations like Nova Entertainment and ACAST to then truly be backing yourself. And I don't think you can underestimate just how that initial fear and how deeply humbling the experience was and how truly difficult it is. And something that we spoke about when we caught up at the London podcast show is that feeling, certainly for me personally, that imposter syndrome is ever present. And I think that's really important because I've been fortunate enough to have people reach out to me asking for some advice or just to share my experience. And I do feel I have a responsibility to be open and honest that the imposter syndrome is ever present, even more so when you work with two phenomenal individuals like Stephen Bartlett and Georgie Holt, and then the caliber of the team that we're so fortunate to work with. It's a very humbling experience every single day. You're caught between total gratitude that you've been given this opportunity and at times, fear and panic of what to do next. But that's more so, to your point, we've really been reflecting on this. So I do think, not for it to be gendered, but it is an interesting lens on the female experience of how we turn up in business. And I've spoken to a lot of other women in executive positions, and it seems like there is a common theme of this imposter syndrome. And I think that Georgie and I have a opportunity here to try and hopefully change it for the next generation of leaders in the way that we conduct ourselves, and also try to be really open and honest that two truths can be real at the same time, that it is an incredible experience, but it is incredibly difficult. And I think people need to be really aware, if assessing whether what they want to do with their lives and commit to, that the personal sacrifice is real, the imposter syndrome is real, the sleep deprivation is real, but all of the benefits are equally real. So it's this constant, interesting dichotomy for me of the most challenging yet most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. And the two have certainly been constant, be it launching Telling Media and then, of course, meeting Stephen Bartlett and the team and then launching Flight Studio. The two realities are in constant parallel, and it's really up to me as a leader to recognize some of the habits or limiting beliefs that aren't going to be productive. It's quite interesting. Georgie spoke about the 45-page manifesto and the fact that I was so honest, and I would say that I've had to learn when to not be so honest and tenacious. And that has been a common theme throughout my career, that same kind of superpower can also be not destructive, but like limiting, to the type of leader that you want to be. And then taking that even one step further, which I think is really important for anyone that wants to certainly enter business, but lead teams, is having a really deep understanding of why you are the way you are. I mean, Stephen starts the podcast every single episode. He asks every guest about their earliest context, because he really recognizes that those early years, your family conditioning, your lived experience does really impact who you are and how you show up in the world. And it's something that I've been able to, I suppose, thread the needle on. That, as you know, I'm the youngest of 8 kids. And that really set the scene of an environment where I probably always felt that I had to fight to stand out or speak up, speak louder. And at times that energy has served me well in terms of being tenacious in sales and generating revenue and commercial impact, because you have to have that level of tenacity. But it's also about understanding when some of those behaviors aren't serving the type of leader you want to be, and just having, I'd say it's a constant pursuit of personal reflection. And I think we hold ourselves to high account as leaders, and to really understand that, yes, there's some behaviors that are our superpowers, like being tenacious and being honest, but knowing when to not have to say everything in full honesty. And I think there's so much elements of leadership that we are like perfectly imperfect. And even though you strive to be, some of those behaviors do show up. We were just talking about it yesterday, actually. There's a couple of live examples. I was laughing. I don't know, forget if it's universal alignment having this podcast.
There's always something to the timing of things and when conversations need to be had. There's an energetic in a lot of this work that gets overlooked, and, gets overlooked with a lot of the conversations that are had around professionalism, around business, around how we show up for ourselves and how we peel back so many of those layers. Like you, I have had similar feedback over my career. It's great that you've got passion, but can you just be a little less passionate in this circumstance and this circumstance? And I was always so, no, like I am who I am. My passion serves well when it comes to this, budget line or this massive thing we have to do in 5 minutes, or like whatever else it is that has to happen. But, it doesn't suit now. And it has taken for me to also step out on my own, away from the comfort of a company that's, pay the regular salary and the umbrella, knowing that I'm sort of safe, to go, actually, that self-awareness, those layers, going right back to everything from how you look at money, from how you look at self-growth, to how you look at how you present your personal brand, and how deliberate that is or not deliberate. Everything just starts to peel back. And it's painful at best, but incredibly powerful.
I think linking it back to the podcast as well, and certainly for your audience, is that, I was thinking about advice for anyone wanting to launch their own business or enter leadership. And I think doing the personal work and the personal self-discovery is actually really important, because to be a leader of people, I think you have to be fundamentally self-aware. Low ego, high humility is essential in these environments. So it's something that I think has only served me well as I, continue to evolve in a leadership journey. And that's certainly something I would recommend for anyone. Do the difficult, introspection at times, because you'll be much better for it.
If there's one thing that takes an absolute beating in this gig, no matter what it looks like, what scale, it is your ego. There's no two ways about it. Like you end up feeling like embarrassed or self-aware about who you are and what you know, what you don't know. Then you get just as proud of what you do and what you can do for yourself as well. So I understand, and I laugh about it and think about it often, just like, why exactly do we do this to ourselves? But we do know why. I want you to tell me a story, both of you, either of you. I want you to take me to that moment, and I give some insight into the story only because I have heard it before and just love it. But that moment where you are surrounding a laptop, you're reading something on LinkedIn. It's something that Stephen Bartlett has said, and you've got an idea in your mind. So you're in your co-working space and you're like, I think we're going to email Stephen Bartlett. Please put me in that room. Tell me how that went. Tell me the story. Tell the listener the story. How on earth did you end up emailing Stephen Bartlett, and what did you say?
I mean, I would love to say it was like an atypical working time, but classic us, it was like 1 a.m. Which, by the way, I don't advocate for. I screenshotted something. I think I screenshotted you on WhatsApp, and I was like, we should probably email this guy, because I think he'd be interested in what we were doing in terms of the business we were building with telling. And again, goes back to that idea of like taking these enormous leaps and these big personal risks, moving to the US, giving up a big corporate salary in the US. Anyone who's worked in America, you'll understand specifically what those things can mean. And the opportunity and the platform, I had generally had people coming up to me and saying, I think you're technically insane. Like, you've just achieved what is like so many people's dream end goal, like the end game. Like, we're talking like end game. Getting to America, getting to New York, and working in a media company. Like, this is the stuff they make movies about. Like, this is the stuff they write TV series about. Like, it's an endless pursuit for a lot of people, particularly my generation. I'm a good 10 years older. It was always like America was the dream. So I had like people like, are you okay? Because you have just done the craziest thing. UNCB have like technically, I'm going to say quotation, made it. and you're going to like leave all of that. You're going to let all of that go and jump into something completely unknown. You're going to not only just do that, you're going to do it together. You change your surroundings, change your life all over again. So the reason I'm saying that is like, so when it came to emailing Stephen Bartlett, like, that's a snack, honey. Like, truly a snack.
It was a snack at that point. It was real. You'd be surprised to know how little energy we actually gave it. This is the thing. And Stephen laughs. He always mentions like with or without you energy is like really appealing when you're reading it on the other side. I think at that time we probably felt we had nothing to lose.
Yeah, you've done the hard thing. Like we built our brand, built the website. We were like out on the road trying to win clients with like no money, totally bootstrapping. We were getting some wins as well. So we were feeling really good about where we were going. And you just kind of want to like, in this founder story, you kind of like want to tell people what you're doing, like just shout it as loud as you can. It's like one of the most important things that why I think very good salespeople often make very good founders, because I think that sort of that natural ability to like sell what you have, who you are. And you often see it in that like co-founder duality. You have like the product person, maybe the more introverted technical person, and the much more like sales marketing person. And I think like sometimes salespeople are pretty good founders because you can tell the story really well. You can sell your journey very well. And CB and I were certainly finding in the early stages of like moving into an entrepreneurial space and co-founding space, like our personal story and the story we told our clients, it was absolutely true. Our total belief in this industry was born out of absolute belief and confidence in what it could do. But the story really mattered. Like telling the story of us, telling the story of podcasts, telling the story. And I think that sort of idea that people have come up through sales roles and make very good founders, and then people doubt a sales career as a choice because it's sort of seen as lesser or like it's not as important as other roles in companies. It's in America, it's very different. They love being sellers. It's a really, really good thing. And I think that's why Americans are so good at telling stories, is they're actually just amazing salespeople. So we kind of got very good at telling our story. And as, again, like in any person, in any organization, like your sales team are your greatest assets, and being a salesperson is one of the most important skills you can learn, because you're always going to be selling when you're a co-founder or you're founding anything. You're just constantly in sales mode. So really, we were just wanted to tell Stephen Bartlett we should just tell Stephen our story, because like we're telling everyone. So like, who else can we tell? Who else can we email? Like, what is that network connection we might make at a drinks or an event, or like next to me in the co-working space? Like, who can I tell? Because I just might tell the right person. So Stephen was just another person we kind of wanted to tell. So it was like, should we just tell him?
I think trusting your instincts there, because I can imagine a lot of people agonize over drafting the email to send to work at Stephen Bartlett or the Stephen Bartlett inbox. But we drafted it in about probably like 25 minutes. I think the timestamp was about 1 a.m. So we weren't even together. It was in a back and forth, I think, over our phones, just sharing a little bit about us. And to Georgie's point, sharing the story of our journey in global podcast media and telling media. It's more so the moment that they replied was particularly memorable, because we were at a co-working space in Soho at the time, and I included a Calendly link, which, by the way, Stephen says it's critical for it to be frictionless. So for anyone that wants to get his attention, you have to make sure it's frictionless to reply and get a meeting. So we were sitting in the co-working space, and I had a meeting invite come into my diary that said Christiana Brenton stroke Stephen Bartlett, and I screamed. Screamed at the top of my lungs. Georgie was in a meeting room, I think, with one of our clients, and she laughed that she heard my boots, I think, my heels clumping outside as I was running into her to say, oh my God, Stephen Bartlett's replied. And even at that moment, I don't think we thought it was real. We thought it would be his team on the other side, because, he does obviously use alias emails, given how her profile he is. And it probably wasn't until we were sitting together in a small meeting room. I was very nervous, nudging Georgie under the table, and then Stephen came up on the screen. And it's so cliche. And it's so interesting because I was, consuming a lot of business content, founder content, and it's riddled with cliches. And then I've gone to realize that they're all true, because it was instantaneous with Stephen. Like, our core values were instantly aligned. The conversation was very open, honest, authentic about the type of podcast company that we would be, seek to build, all the challenges we thought were facing the industry, all the opportunities, the type of creators that we would want to platform as well. It was pretty clear from that first conversation that this was going to be an impactful moment. Mm.
Oh, I do feel like you just took me there with the clumping of the shoes because I can hear that completely. I can just really see that moment. But, there's just so much to love about that story. But exactly as, you guys just both described there, you might just tell the right person who you are, what you do, what you want to do, and how you might go about it and what your passion is. This is something that I have come to learn that is just so very important, not to ever gatekeep yourself from what potential opportunity is around the corner, whether that be for not sharing an idea for fear of someone quote unquote taking it. It's a conversation I've had on this podcast before when it comes to seeking investment for new ideas, or just not knowing what your life's going to look like if somebody says yes to you about something. There's just so much power in putting yourself out there and seeing what comes next.
I'm trying to think about tangible advice and hopefully value add to the audience as well. Yes, trust your instinct, but yes, do your research. So I want to be really clear that Georgie and I are very familiar with the Stephen Bartlett brand. I had personally consumed every episode of Diary of a CEO that had ever been published. So I want to be clear that yes, trust your instincts. Yes, draft an email, but yes, make it completely tailored and do your research for the end user. Because someone like Stephen Bartlett, and we now know there were over 25,000 people that emailed that inbox. So I just want to be clear that don't underestimate how much prep work you should also be doing, in terms of making sure you're tailoring your messaging to the audience, which every good storyteller does do. But I just reflect on, and we see it in the inbox now. I'm across all the commercial inbox, and at times people are just hard pitching themselves to Stephen without doing any research into who we are and our company values, and making sure that there's clear alignment. It's the classic. I mean, you're a sales, you're a salesperson through and through, as well as customizing your message to the end user. So that's also really important. Less about yourself and more understanding of who they are and who you're speaking to is really critical. We were lucky that we were already really familiar with the brand.
So I have a little story for you about how to create a lasting and personalized brand impact for your business. So stay with me here, because a while back, my partner Will was doing some part-time work for a really great small business, and he'd made some impactful changes to their workflow that was improving productivity. And so the owners wanted to say thanks in a way that would be both personal and practical. They gave him a $100 preloaded Visa gift card with a special message, because they knew we don't go out for meals very often because Cozzy lives, and business building isn't the best combo for disposable cash, am I right? But that we love a cheeky chai date. And so the message said, "Your next handful of cuppa dates are on us. Thank you for all of your awesome work." And every time we went out for those cuppas, a very, very sacred time for us, we thought of them with gratitude. That's a lasting and personal impact for a business. And imagine creating those moments for your team, your clients, or even your potential clients. My show partners, the amazing team at Card.Gift, believe in this positive impact that we can make, and they help us make it uniquely personal, memorable, and meaningful. Card.Gift gift cards can be customized with features like heartfelt video messages, custom written messages, and personalized photos. And they've even made it as easy as possible to choose your gift with a curated collection for your team or clients. This collection has your prepaid card designs suitable for any occasion, like thank yous, farewells, good lucks, or enjoy your travels, plus retailer gifts like Drummond Golf for the golf enthusiasts, Ticketmasters for event lovers or Tayswift superfans, Apple for tech fans, and dining cards for food lovers. Making those humans, the ones who help make our businesses thrive, feel valued and appreciated is a brand impact that lasts well beyond the gifting moment. With a gift card from Card.Gift, it truly stands out and creates special relationships. Google Card.Gift and make someone's day. Oh, I could not agree more. And like sales, but also PR. We see this so much in business gigs as well. Like, when you're pitching for PR or, anything like that, it's just anything that is broad stroke, anything that is unconsidered. And you kind of know it when you send it as well, I think. You kind of know that you're just throwing shit at a wall and hoping that it sticks. And terrible analogy. But, you kind of can feel it if you're honest with yourself that it's not quite right. So, yeah, I truly believe that effort, for the right things, doing less of them and really making an effort to do it at the right time. I won't tell too much of this story only because it's like a live thing at the moment. But at that podcast show in London, I had been thinking about an idea for 12 months and working it in my head, and was thinking, oh, when's going to be the right opportunity and who am I going to sort of pitch this to? Where is the right place to take this? And then there was just one conversation in one very natural, unplanned moment where I was able to link all of these things to the right person. And it came out so quickly and so naturally that it's like, when something is right, when something is, when you've thought enough about what you want and why, it really does happen. But nothing is perfect without that research behind it, without that thinking behind it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you guys have the opportunity here. I mean, it's huge. Like, I've nerded out in it already a little bit, but building an industry-defining company in an industry that you love is extraordinary. Like, I'm in so much awe, and it's mind-blowing for me. And it's something that's quite rare because industry-defining ideas are usually requiring significant capital to get behind them. Something that frustrates me deeply because I'm like, fuck, I've got so many good ideas. If only I had like heaps of money to be able to do them. So I'm intimately familiar with this, that it's not always possible for the average person. So knowing that you are part of building something where there has been a significant investment made, having a partner of this scale, what kind of pressure does that place on you both as individuals working within it?
I look at it in a slightly different way. Like I was saying, talking to CB about this last night, like I see this as like an unbelievable gift that we have been given. And I am so deeply appreciative of it. And it kind of readjusts my thinking and framework around it being pressure, because of course there's pressure. Of course it feels that it's something that we have to deliver on the promises made. You promise to each other, you promise to your founder, your chairman, your teams. Like there's constant promises and exchanges going on between everybody all the time. However, I kind of see it as this unbelievable gift. And so I'm going to like take every minute of every day to try and appreciate it and make it the best possible opportunity and potential gift I have ever been grateful enough to receive. And I also come at it like in a different way as well, which is like, but who else? Who else is going to come together to do this? Like CB and I meeting, Stephen choosing to start a podcast 4 years ago in his wardrobe to talk about his CEO journey. Like he didn't go into this thinking that, oh, I'm going to build like he might have done, but like, I don't think it was front of mind. So I'm going to go and build a podcast media and technology company, a podcast growth platform. I don't think he went into that with this idea. Again, I think he had a story to tell and he wanted to share it with people, which is obviously where a lot of us kind of start with all of these things. But I'm like, but who else is going to come together? This team, CB and I, the podcasters that we've signed, like it's so interesting to hear like how they've all got to this moment as well and why this is the right time for them and how their years and years of like deep knowledge building and expertise that they have like fought for over decades and years have brought them to this place. So I kind of have this thing of like, but yeah, who else? Like who else is going to do this? Who else is going to take this opportunity and like run at it so hard that it's like, if you keep on just like sprinting and running, like the momentum keeps moving you forward. So the pressure becomes something that is just part of this gift, like that great Billie Jean King quote, which is like, pressure is a privilege, like it is, because this is a gift. So I take it very seriously, and therefore the pressure is just part of the whole gift that we've been given. So I'm sick. I enjoy it. I think I enjoy it because again, like I can't believe I'm here. Like I enjoy it all. It doesn't mean that I don't have sleepless nights. It doesn't mean that we have to make big decisions and change direction or pivot or do all of those things. But like, it's honestly a gift, and I'm enormously grateful every single day that I get to experience this pressure. And it becomes clearer and clearer what Billie Jean King means when she says that, because I would never know what it is like to be an elite athlete or to have that type of pressure and the eyes watching on you where every point and every serve you make or volley you hit back has an impact. And I saw this really insanely amazing speech by Roger Federer. And I don't know whether anyone's seen, he was awarded something very recently, a doctorate from a university, which I can't remember where it was, and I'm sure you'll qualify it afterwards. But he said something like he has become the greatest tennis player of all time by only winning 54% of his points. And the reason he's become that tennis player and become that elite achiever is he didn't think about the points he lost. It was just another point that he had lost, and he knew he had to work on his game and improve technically to like lose less points over time. but nobody remembers that he lost 46% of every point he played, but he's become an elite tennis player. So like that really impacted me. And I was like, you can still lose and win. And it's how you approach both of those things at the same time. And I just thought it was such a powerful thing. He said, I was like, what an enormously helpful thing to say to people is that I lost nearly half of every point I played, but I still won. And I just think that's the most amazing thing. So when it comes to pressure, you're going to lose all the time. You're going to lose every single day. But it's like what you learn from that loss and then how you apply it to a better learning in the future. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer to say that at 45, like I am like loving this opportunity and moment. And it is a gift. And it's a gift to do it with CB. It's a gift to do it with Stephen. It's a gift to do it with this team. And anyone who's thinking about being a founder, it might be the biggest gift that you ever give yourself. Honestly, like it is a transformative thing to try and do. Doesn't mean that you do it, but it's a transformative thing to try and do. And I don't think I will ever meet another founder and not have this deep respect and appreciation for what it takes. And I don't think you ever know until you take the leap. The easiest thing you can do is stay in a corporate job. And that's no shade for anybody in a corporate role, but it is the easy choice. And I would say it was, and back in my corporate world, I would have been like, it's a difficult choice. You have like lots of pressure. You have like stakeholders, board members, you have big teams, you have huge amounts of pressure, but it is an easier choice. And you don't know that until you're on the other side of the choice where you're doing the thing and building from scratch and doing the hard work of founding. So yeah, those are some of the things that have been on my mind across the last couple of weeks.
I found as well, typically the pressure that you put on yourself is far greater than the pressure of the board, of Stephen Violet, of anyone else. So again, I keep going back to the importance of that personal work and personal introspection and development, which is really linked to the Diary of a CEO. Stephen started interviewing powerful CEOs and founders and then realized that the two worlds weren't separate in terms of personal health, personal wellness, self-awareness and business acumen, that they are linked. And they absolutely have been in my personal journey in being a founder and leadership, because yes, it is everything that Georgie's saying is absolutely true. It is such a privilege, and learning how to practice perspective and gratitude and self-acceptance that you will fail, even as a founder, even as a CEO, even in the C-suite, and having radical acceptance on that and being kind to yourself is also really critical. Because I think we, as leaders, we hold ourselves to a very high account, as we should. We have a responsibility, but it's also important that we are constantly empathetic to ourselves in order to, in my experience anyway, to really be able to evolve in the role, because it is difficult at times and you are going to make mistakes. And it's not a case of developing yourself to a point that you don't make a mistake. It's how fast you can flex that resilience chip to recognize the mistake, acknowledge it, and try to move on. And I think that's really important. But I would never, ever purport that that true leadership is never making mistakes and being perfect, because it's almost an impossible standard.
And you learn so much more from the mistake. Like, I hate when we get things right, because you don't really learn anything, or you assume that you're right. You're like, oh, this is fine, or this is good enough, or we got that right. Like, there's no lesson there. That like you kind of it plays to your ego. Oh, we got it right. That was amazing. Like, aren't we great? Aren't we smart? Aren't we winning? Like, isn't it good to be on the winning team? Yeah, it is. But like, there's no lesson. There's no hard, dirty lessons that you learn by getting things right all the time. Like, truly, the greatest achievements that we have ever had, or, it is getting all of the things wrong. And again, like Christiana saying, like that humility of like, I got it wrong. We got it wrong. It wasn't right. Like, we go again. How do we then pivot and adapt and improve? And sort of Stephen has this absolute principle and ethos around failure and experimentation. And I think it really speaks to the things that we're probably quite inarticulately saying, is like it can be sort of uniquely described in both of those contexts, which is innovate or die. Like, you have to keep experimenting. You have to keep testing new ideas, new hypotheses. You have to like try and not lean into personal bias, which has been one of the most wonderful gifts to me, which is like challenging your bias. And like, particularly over time, your biases become much more ingrained and entrenched, and actually to unpick them is like such an interesting process. But you only get to do that with experimentation. Like, you have to keep testing your hypothesis and your belief. So that experimentation piece allows you to test things and get things wrong. Because when you fail, you get better data. You don't actually get very good data when you win, because you just assume that everything you've done is right and everything you have done to get to this point has enabled that win to happen, when actually it just might be a set of circumstances you had zero control over has put you in a place of winning because your competition maybe failed. So you by default won, and actually that's not a win at all. That company that has failed, I can tell you now, has got way more data and insight than you have in the win. So we have a head of failure and experimentation who is here to like drive experimentation, but also this concept that to fail is to get data is to get insight. Insight is then knowledge, and then knowledge is a superpower that you can then keep using to progress your business. And Stephen and the team and all of us are about to go on this incredibly radical journey of resetting everything we already know and experimenting with everything we think is good in our world. So Stephen, for example, and the team, the Driver CEO team, their trailers are probably some of the most famous work that they put out into the world. And they are incredibly successful. But we've been doing the same work for 2 years. And what happens if we didn't do it like we've already done it? What if we did it completely differently? So to get a team to a place who are maybe elite at their craft and say, you know what, we're going to try and do something, and we're going to experiment with something brand new. I know you think you're winning, but we're not learning. So let's go and do something brand new and experiment with a new idea and a new hypothesis of how we could do this. Like, it's an incredible thing to have the confidence to go, okay, we're good at that, but we're going to stop doing what we're good at and try something very different. He talks often about the innovator's dilemma, which is how incumbents can get taken over by new and disruptive companies. Is that actually quite often what happens is a company that becomes very successful and good at something loses the appetite and will to innovate over time because they're too fearful of losing what they're good at in order to try something new. And when a new company, disruptive company comes into the playing field, they have nothing to lose. So they're going to continue to innovate. And it's the incumbents that get the greatest impact from that because you become too attached to your success and therefore your innovation and experimentation dies. So innovate or die, experiment or die is something that we really believe in here. And it's a really, really fun process to be part of. Like, it's a lot of fun.
It's so critical to our culture as well, and the type of resilience that culture enables. You know, we're going back to these themes. And what does it take, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, but resilience is critical. And when you have a culture that not only enables failure and experimentation, but really celebrates the learnings, it does allow you to not necessarily have that fear. And we spoke about the pressure, you know, and when you create an environment where it's okay to fail, where there's meaningful data points that, you know, we're responsible for simply applying the learnings as opposed to focusing on the mistake. And that's really freeing in a sense as well. That also helps, I think, relieve the pressure that we were speaking to earlier. And it's very true to the culture here. And we're really, really fortunate.
I mean, firstly, there was nothing inarticulate about anything that either of you just said. It's really got my mind going on that situation that you get in as a founder, as a first-time business owner at any scale or at any phase, where you find yourselves in those positions where you have nothing to lose, be it your ego or your personal challenge or whatever. You've stripped it back to just everything is gone, and it's just you and the potential that you have. I think there's just so much power in that space, in having nothing to lose. And it is really such a superpower to lean into that. Thinking right back to when you said, when you are working in a corporate role, there is something that you're not able to learn in those environments. Neither are easy, but there's one half of it that's about the person and about the individual and about the stripping back of self. That intersection of personal growth that you have with going after your business dreams, like no matter what the skin looks like, whether or not you have multiple co-founders, whether or not there's VC investment, whether or not there is bootstrapping, like whatever the circumstance, it's that gift of personal growth and that gift of seeing what you're capable of and doing work that you care about. Like you say, even if it fails, and I think I have just the amount of times I've been told no, the amount of things that I have struggled with, the amount of times I've been like, I am straight up fucked here. Like, I've got 3 weeks of runway. That feeling, like, that does ignite something deep within you where you're just like, I have never have known what I am capable of, what this feels like, if I hadn't at least taken that step. And that one thing that I did that made me uncomfortable, because I just had that little tiny instinct that I believed in myself, and I believe in whatever you're going to create. And like you say, pivot, redo it, redress, whatever, it happens a million times. And as we know it, once you get started with one business, it leads to plenty more pivots within the business itself. But The one thing that never ceases to surprise me in this gig is the random shit that you end up learning that you have to grow skill in. I mean, I make this joke often, but like sometimes I lose days sometimes learning some ridiculous new skill that I didn't realize I needed until I started, business number 6 or whatever I'm up to at the moment. What have been some of the more surprising skills you've had to lean into as you've gone on this journey?
I think for me, every day is a school day all over again. And again, that's why I kind of look at this as a gift that I have learned about lighting techniques and camera ops and set design and YouTube algorithmic behaviors and aspects of every part of the components that make this business do what it needs to do. Like I've really learned into the learning opportunities and to build that potential for me to be a better coach for the team. Like I have this really interesting dynamic that goes on in my mind at the moment around watching the Olympics and watching the dynamic between coaches and athletes and being very moved by how much it means to the coach to win, because the coach quite often is not the person who wears the medal. They don't get the platform. They don't stand on the podium. They don't get the multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, but they are with them every single step of the way. They are constantly helping this person improve, to hone a technique, refine a technique. But they need to understand the technique. So like, I can't be a great coach for this team or leader for this team if I don't try and understand their work and their world, which means like getting into the like really early stage detail of what does it take to light a set? What does this word mean? How do I apply that technique to other conversations that I might have? And like I work with what I think is a team of elite athletes in their field. Like they are all elite in terms of their skill set around a certain capability. And I see my work as like a coach to help them hone and refine that technique over time. But I need to understand each part that goes into that technique. So I think in terms of my skill set build, it's been absolutely back to basics on some things I've never done before. And it's a really amazing opportunity. And I learned that launching the business with Telling and Christiana to begin with, like truly, I'd never built my own website. Like I'd never done that. I'd always worked for companies that had websites, and I would just go in and there would be a website and I would understand the technicalities of updating that. But like I'd never built a brand from scratch. I'd never built a website. Like I learned how to do it. And now I know how to do it. And I had never created a company social media channel from scratch. I've now done it. It's like all of these things, like when you go into the entrepreneurial co-founding space, like the joy of reigniting a learning opportunity is really joyful. And I think there is a lot of the corporate world and work that you do that maybe there is less opportunity to learn because you're just in an L&D program that the office decides that you need to go on, or you're listening to podcasts or watching or reading books that you have a personal interest in. I think there's something about choosing to be a founder. You're kind of forced into like learning stuff you never needed to know that you needed to know. And now you have to know it because there's no choice versus it being an option. Because there's a lot of optionality in learning when you're like in corporate environments or choosing that sort of path. And in the founder space, there's like absolute necessity learning, because I'm like, if I don't know how to do this, it will not be done. So I have to learn. And there's something like really wonderful about that, where it's appreciating those moments where I had no idea how to do this before. And now I do know how to do it before. And now if I can get good at it, I can coach someone else to do it too. So yes, I think there's so many things that you learn in a skill stack. And I say my skill stack is so much richer having now done this founding journey. And should I ever go back to a big corporate in the decades to come, I will be a better person in a corporate because I've gone on a founder journey. So if anyone's thinking about doing it, and if it doesn't work, you will still be a better, more improved, more well-rounded, more skilled. Your skill stack will be even bigger than it was before going from a founder back to a corporate, because it is. I am a more learned person because I have done this journey. And it's honestly quite often through necessity rather than choice. And that's a great experience.
I absolutely love the way that you talk about, in decades to come, if I ever, this is what it would give to me. And I think for anyone who is perhaps on that cusp of deciding whether or not to step out of something they've known before to try something new that's for themselves, that realization that everything that we're doing in this is for now. And it's for as long as it's the right decision. And there is no there's no flippancy or there's no lightness to going back and forth between the two or pivoting to a new company as you've done between telling media and with Flight Studio. And, just having that perspective to be like, this is a journey we're on, and work is so much of our life and so much of our personal growth. And no matter what skin it takes, I really love that perspective you have on it. And geez, I couldn't agree more. If I was ever running a big corporate and I had a potential entrepreneur on my hands on their resume, and I'm like, this person, no matter what size of the company it is, it could be a small little side hustle. If I see that on someone's resume, I'm gonna be like, hire that person now, because their Canvas skills, their Squarespace skills, their accounting software skills alone are so valuable. Now, for both of you, wonderful humans sharing this space with me today, sharing that personal side of business, that growth, that pressure it puts on you to lean into your self-awareness, to lean into having to build a personal brand, leaning into all of that, and the sometimes ick that it feels, the awkwardness that we wade ourselves through, is such a significant gift to give to somebody, to give to those around you. That cannot be understated how incredibly important that is. And I think just with just a fraction of what you've shared today, I think is going to go such an incredibly long way to remind people that none of us have it all figured out. We're all learning about ourselves every single day, and having passion for something and seeing it through to the nth degree and believing in yourself it's half the battle. It's just what we have to do to show up. So as a thank you for sharing your gift and, giving that gift to the listener in such a wonderful way, what can I do for you? What can the listener do to support you as you keep going on this journey?
I love that question. And I love you asking that question, because it's one of the most important questions asked to me when we first started on our telling journey. It was asked by another founder. And I think it's a question that founders really only understand themselves once they're in this path, which is, how can I help you scale your business? And I think it wasn't, how can I help you individually as a human? Like, what can I do so you can grow you are successful? What can I do to scale your business? What is who can I call? What would be helpful? And I really love that question, because it was about, there is enough success and wealth out there for everyone. And it wasn't just about us being a competition. Like, what can I do? Tell me. So I love that one. Give us feedback, critical feedback. I think, if things you don't like what we're doing, you don't like what the work we're making, right? Do give us that insight and feedback. It's a really essential part of, again, understanding where we failed, getting that data and trying to improve our work for everyone. Because we're deeply committed to making media brands that really do contribute to a happy, healthier human experience. So if we're not doing that, then we need to know very fast that if it's not being achieved, then we need to change direction and pivot to enable us to continue to do that work. So yeah, feedback, please. All of it, all the time. Unfiltered. It's the best way.
I mean, this industry, podcasting, I couldn't be more obsessed with it if I tried. I get teased often for exercising, listening to podcasts about podcasts, and I love the work that you're doing in this industry and just believe in its potential so much. So I personally can't wait to see all of these shows when they land, get around to them, promote them. To people listening, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast, please just bloody do it. There are not too many podcasts in this world. They absolutely do change lives for the people doing them and the people listening. CB, for the listeners, I've been calling you CB this whole way through. Like, it is your name. It is your nickname. Christiana Brenton, someone I've known for quite some time and have been in awe of from the minute that I met you. And when I saw this happen, I was just like, honestly, I can't actually close this without actually saying the moment I saw that video on LinkedIn, and I had a feel. I've been watching this subtly for a while, and then I saw all of these roles come up in what was before it was Flight Studio list on LinkedIn, and I was just like, something is happening here, and I was so curious. I saw this video land and I was like, oh, what is happening here? And then I saw Christiana's face and I was like, of course, of course. I am not surprised, because you are someone who is just an absolute powerhouse, and I've always been in awe of you and an admirer of you. And Georgie, one of Hollywood Reporter's most influential people in podcasting. Excuse me. You guys are awesome. I just am so thankful for you being here with me today, for sharing your learnings with me and with the listener. It's a huge gift. So just thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Kim. And actually, I would like to close with a question that we were asked, which is, how can we help you? How can we help you scale your business? How can the people listening help scale your business? What can we do to scale your company?
Oh, I have never been asked that in return, if you would believe it. I've done 140 odd interviews now. Look, I think as a passionate podcast creator here, this show, if I can grow this show, I can help more people stay in business. And that's something I'm always going to be passionate about, no matter what I do for a job as a business owner, as a, potential corporate employee again one day. I just want to help as many people as I can back themselves to stay in business, no matter what that looks like for them. So tell your friends about it. Let people know if they're starting something and they don't see themselves in the story of others, some of the biggest stories as well that are out there. That's what my podcast is here to do, to show all the scale. So that would be a huge help, and just keep creating opportunity in this industry, because I plan on working in podcasting for as long as I can foreseeably see. And that's a gift that I have for myself, that I have found now that this is my heart and soul, this industry. And, you're creating opportunity for me just by growing it. And bloody stay in touch, because I find you both very enjoyable to talk to.
Exceptional interview. Yeah, interviewer, host.
You can edit that out.
I won't. I'll leave it in there. After we stopped recording and naturally went on to chat a while longer, I had some time to reflect on being asked that question in return that I wanted to share with you, because as you can probably hear, I wasn't quite ready for it. Hosts and interviewers will know that when you're connected with your guest and supporting them throughout a conversation, you yourself are the very last thing on your mind. But on reflection, here's a more articulate response to that question that I would love for you to hear, and how you might be able to support my business, but also my industry and your own impact to grow. Podcasting can change lives. It's undeniable, be it through learning something about your potential, your health, a new skill, or just a simple connected entertainment moment that makes you feel more joy in your day. There's not many media platforms that are designed that way and that can say the same. And there's something else relative to podcasting's impact that I deeply believe. Brands and their marketing budgets have the ability to positively impact and change the world faster than all of us doing it alone. It cannot be up to individuals only to create a positive impact for others. And this is why I believe in the immense and highly untapped power of brand-led original podcasting. So that's why I work in it. So if you own a brand and you've thought about creating a show or a whole network, get in touch with me. If you listen to this show often, you'll already know that aside from this podcast, that is my business. I consult with and create strategies for brands who want to create podcasts and connect one-to-one with an audience that they own. And I truly believe owned media is the future of brand marketing success. And if you share this vision in some way, if it sparks an interest and a passion for podcasting, do reach out to me. Who knows, I might just find my very own business partner and be able to tap into the power of duos so beautifully described by Georgie and CB. Well done to you for listening all the way through. I hope you agree that it is absolutely worth your time and you're feeling better for it. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.